All right, what up YouTube? Welcome back to the channel. I have Stuart Popejoy from Kadena.
Hi, well, thanks, Ryan. And hello, everybody. Happy to be here. My name's Stuart Popejoy. I'm the CEO of Kadena. And so Kadena, the quick summary is we're the only scalable proof of work layer one blockchain with the safest smart contracts in the Pact smart contract language. What that means for the folks at home is that we offer a solution to the problems that are really holding back crypto. And what are those problems? First off, safety. That's obvious. There's a lot of huge hacks going on in the hundreds of millions of approaching a billion revenue lost. The other thing that's impeding adoption is a lack of true scalability. You see things like Ethereum starting to even platforms, the Pancake swap running on Binance Smart Chain, unscalable platforms leading to congestion and unacceptable gas prices. And finally, just proof of work itself. The big, Bitcoin's big problem was always that it couldn't scale, and that's why it's inefficient, and that's why, most of the hating going on for Bitcoin these days really comes from the fact that it doesn't scale. Proof of work is recognized as the most secure platform. So we're really the only platform that's ever brought all that together. And today we're now not resting on our laurels, but or our lawyers, and moving into, we're moving aggressively into interop, into DeFi, into NFT. Soon to come are payment platforms, lending platforms. We're integrating with exciting protocols, and Kadena is going to be the place to be where high quality value is handled, whether that's institutional quality custody of NFTs, whether that's all the leading protocols in crypto, and it's all going to be safe, it's all going to be scalable, and it's going to be accessible to everybody.
I feel like this is going to come off as shilling because I'm so excited to have you on the channel, man. I can't thank you enough, because when I first found your project, and I'm so busy, I don't always have a ton of time to really dive in deep. So sometimes I throw money at things. And for whatever reason, I found your project and I didn't just throw my money at it. So I brought, and I made that video on you guys. I didn't own the coin. I make content on YouTube. I try to, if I find a good coin, just because I want to put that coin on everybody's radar, to help everybody out. And I found your project, and then I invited you guys on the show, and then Doug happened to reach out, and I got you guys to come on, and I started to learn about the technology and really what Kadena actually represents and what the future might hold for a coin like Kadena. And it's almost like it's not like a might, it's kind of like more of just like how long until everybody actually sees the real value. And I know that the development of your DeFi ecosystem will go a long way into helping you guys get that notoriety, but there's no limit to what Kadena can turn into. There's no other crypto that I've ever seen, ever in my life I've seen like it. I've never been this hype about any cryptocurrency. So if it's okay with you, would you mind diving a little deeper into your DeFi, and then talking about what Kadena could potentially evolve into compared to something like Bitcoin and Ethereum?
Sure.
Sure.
So the idea behind DeFi is that all the problems I just mentioned are actually crippling DeFi. And DeFi is amazing, and it's obviously was the breakout story of 2020, and really proved that crypto brings something new, genuinely new. It's not just like a store value. It's not just a place for speculators. It's actually a place where you can talk about a new kind of financial market. But we've seen that held up by the problems that I mentioned. Gas is the obvious one. And gas in this case has an impact for kind of fairness, in the sense that whales don't care about gas. They're going to make their money. Exchange doesn't care about gas. They're going to make their money. But, average investor is going to come and get wrecked with just the gas fees alone. But there are actually much more insidious things that happen when you're not scalable. And that is, you're not actually ever going to be able to give. It's really about the swappers, not the liquidity providers. The swappers are not going to get best execution. And a lot of the concern over something like MEV, minor extractable value, in other words, basically being front run by some kind of insider who can, see your trade coming in, is seen as this kind of unsolvable problem, or at least a problem that requires all this like magical financial engineering. And in fact, all it requires is age-old techniques of best execution that we've seen in the equity markets for the past 30 years. What are those? Well, the simplest one is just don't trade your whole load right when you show up to the market. Sounds simple, right?
Mm-hmm.
No, it's not simple. If A, it takes a while for your trade to show up because of congestion. B, you're going to spend a ton on gas. So here's what you can't do on most DeFi systems: not trade. You can't show up and see that some MEV jerk has like distorted the market and then be like, yeah, you know what? I'm going to trade just a tiny little bit. And that's what but that's like basic best execution is simple algorithmic execution that's been around forever is just, come in and look for your spots, get the trade done. There's, it's not new technology, but it's impossible if you have high gas prices and, because we're talking about taking a trade that might be one trade, making it 10, 50, 100 trades. Again, and maybe taking longer, right? And it's always the same kind of like immediacy versus cost. If you see your risk as not establishing a position, then you're willing to pay a lot and maybe get wrecked a little on your trade. Fine, because this thing's going to the moon and you got to get in. Great. Who cares if an MEV shaves some money off the top, right? That's no different than like a hedge fund. You've got a contrary trade in the stock market. Guess who's going to make money off your trade? Hedge funds. Yep. That's how it's going to work. But you got your position and then, cha-ching, you're getting all the money. Now, if you, on the other hand, you care about execution, you care about MEVs robbing you, then you're going to want to do what equity traders have been doing forever and you simply can't do. That's one of the first things is that with Kadena Swap and CADEX, with other DEXs that are going to be on Kadena, nothing is ever going to stop them from doing these kinds of innovations. So the first one is tighter price controls. Simple. You just show up and say, yeah, you know what? I'm not going to trade if the market is distorted this much. By the time you get there, right? Because you're in the block. Now Mr. MEV has come in. And that's an example of something that comes from scalability. We can do that and our system won't blink. Some of the other advantages of, that we bring to something like DeFi, in things like being able to kind of having infrastructure that's easily used and kind of to innovate with. And that's our whole DeFi infrastructure play. The idea being that instead of CADEX having a bunch of kit that I don't know what you want to call it, hot dog CADEX is going to come along and fork it and put up a copy paste of the whole code and fragment the entire market. We're going to have, core pieces as shared infrastructure. So the idea being that if somebody has a better model, they want to issue a token, they want to offer better incentives, they can use all the same infrastructure. And, and most importantly, if they want to innovate with one piece of trading, they can just add that piece and then say, come on over. We've got the right tokenomics. We've got the right trading model. But the point is that they could even potentially part of the same liquidity pool. A lot of what we do kind of looks at proven ways that trading has scaled in the United States. Stocks have multiple markets, but they operate as a unified market. There's a lot of interesting things about how they've done that. So those are the kinds of things that we're going to bring, but require things like a true service architecture. And by the way, that's something you just can't do with Ethereum or with any EVM platform. If it's hard to write EVM contracts that don't get wrecked, a complete showstopper is calling somebody else's contract for your core business because you can't trust their code. So everybody's copying and pasting, not just as a copy paste, sushi move, but also because an auditor won't sign off on you calling some random address. Whereas Pact actually has safe interop between smart contracts. So you can use, for instance, the equivalent of an ERC 1155 token ledger, polyfungible in our world, that's already been audited, is already installed, and already works. It just has a truly autonomous and decentralized model. So if Kadena Swap or CADEX launches it, the infrastructure they're using can host anything. Now, of course, you can go ahead and put your own in too, but it's just trying to get us to the point where there's not so much where there's just not constant fragmentation and where we have best execution.
Can you explain a little bit more about what fragmentation actually is? Because I know I have a hard time grasping it, so I assume most of my audience will too.
Once there is Uniswap, then there is Uniswap and sushi.
Ah. Got you. Okay.
And of course, there's nothing wrong with multiple markets. However, I will note that some of the attacks that aren't really attacks, they're more just like Oracle ARB or something like that, do leverage the fact that these markets are fragmented to distort prices and steal money. But that can be controlled by other mechanisms. Because here's the other thing about fragmented markets is that it leads to a single leader. You end up not really having very healthy competition. Uniswap is just so dominant, at least on the Ethereum platform, just unquestioned.
No doubt.
And one reason why is because you can't, there's of course there's a ton of, interesting projects that work with Uniswap. But again, it's not horizontal integration. It's really kind of more they're taking their place in a vertical stack, which is fine. I don't object to that. It's great. But that's not how you grow a market ecosystem.
I agree 100%. When will we see the DeFi ecosystem on Kadena really start to develop? And are you guys doing anything different about what tokens you guys allow on, where anybody can just create a token? How are you guys making it safer?
So that's an interesting question, actually, and it's one of the things that we're going to confront in NFTs, which is that standards, there's rich standards with Ethereum, and everyone credits standards with being one of the things that made DeFi as an NFT go. The great thing about an NFT is on ERC 721 or an ERC 1155, and in theory, any exchange can trade it, assuming they respect your royalty model. Assuming that with an ERC 1155, you actually have issuance controls, which none of them do and isn't specified in the standard. Assuming that you can guarantee that someone doesn't do an offline trade and basically rob all the royalty holders and just transfer to somebody else blindly. The point being is that one of the things that all the Ethereum standards lack is marketplace standards, transaction interaction standards. All the standards are basically surrounding ownership and custody. And that's great, there's nothing wrong with that, but it misses a huge part of the picture. So, that's just one thing that will start to affect DeFi eventually too. It's got more obvious application in NFTs, because NFTs, you can just transfer money and you've made a sale, right? Transferring an NFT by itself is a chin scratcher on a chain, because it's like, well, wait, didn't somebody pay for this? And a lot of times that's offline, that's not on chain. So one of the things we keep hammering on is putting everything on chain. There are so many benefits that come from keeping everything on chain. I mean, the first one is transparency, obviously. If you're doing a bunch of stuff off chain and then just kind of sending in the final transaction, that's not good. Second is security, in the sense of the more things you put on chain, the more you have multiple eyes on it, the more you're kind of like acting fairly in the ecosystem. And the point being is that most of what we see happening with like EVM chains is people desperately trying to keep everything off chain as much as they can, because Ethereum is so unsafe. So they just put the critical bits, they put the minimum amount on chain. And so that's what we see with the token standards, is that an ERC20 is the barest record that they can possibly get away with a currency. And with an NFT, it's even less. With an NFT, it's just some URI. And there's really no security surrounding that issuance at all. So we want to move that entire thing on chain. One thing we have on Kadena is better storage. We can store a lot more on chain cheaply, because we don't just scale throughput, we scale storage. Now, we're not a file coin. We're not presumably Chia. I'm not sure about Chia, but, we're not an IPFS. We're not going to store videos. We're not going to store Library of Congress. But, we do have the ability to store, let's say, rich documents, small images, things like that. And the reason why that's important is that now you can start to get a picture of the NFT on chain. And we're actually going to mint with manifests that hash each one of these things, make a top hash, and then the kicker, we have a protocol standard that makes the ID be that hash.
No way. I was hoping you're going to say that. That's awesome.
And at that point, that's the NFT. Like that ID now really is the NFT. Like that can even cross chains now, because you can't duplicate that. And right now, everybody knows an NFT person can just like turn around, go from OpenSea to Rarible, mint the exact same thing.
Mm-hmm. Wow, man, it's like every time I talk to you guys, I get more and more and more excited, because you guys are bringing every aspect that you could potentially want and wrap your head around. As far as where we are with technology right now, Kadena's delivering it on every level. And it makes me think, are you not a Bitcoin maximalist, I assume?
I'm not a Bitcoin maximalist, but Kadena likes Bitcoin. We are firmly of the position that Bitcoin is how we got here.
I agree. Can I show you something? You said you can see my screen, right?
Yep.
So if you take a look at Bitcoin, and I just recently, because of Michael Saylor and Robert Breedlove, really started to dive in and understand like how Bitcoin got to where it got today, right? And what that basically boils down to is the 7 layers of Bitcoin. Each one of these layers offers a level of security, right? Energy, technology, political, financial, mining, spatial, and temporal. It's undoubtable that what makes Bitcoin so valuable is its proof of work. It is the skin in the game theory, right? And what makes Bitcoin a property and not a security, viewed in the eyes of the government, is the fact that it is proof of work. It is so decentralized, it is considered a property, right? So that is probably the number one play, right? If and when, and I assume they will, Kadena will be deemed a property, if I just had to take a guess. That puts Kadena in a completely separate level from every proof of stake, because the way it looks now, all proof of stake are going to be a security, just off the top of my head. So let's just kind of roll with that, right? That basically makes Kadena, in a couple years from now, when it gets onto that next level, a buyer of energy. Right now, we're seeing Bitcoin miners travel to the ends of the globe to places where energy is scarce or they have intermittent energy. And what you're seeing is these energy sectors like DTE and consumers and all these big companies that have a ton of money starting to go, wow, we can invite a aluminum smelting company to a country that's going to consume almost as much energy as they're going to save getting all their equipment there. It's a one-time fee to move the miners in there. And then any one of these energy sectors can basically turn that intermittent energy into digital gold, because Bitcoin is that store of value. So you come at it from that angle.
Well, one thing, by the way, I want to say about energy is that, in true crypto style, this is being done with kid gloves and barely at all. And one thing you're going to see from Kadena is really some very meaningful ways that we actually lean into green energy, because we're unique. A proof of work platform is unique in the sense that we can directly drive green energy.
Say that one more time. Can you explain that a little?
The point being is that, right now you see things like kind of carbon credits and some of these, things happening, various systems right now, like Tezos and some other, are doing these things to kind of have carbon credits. And, you see various attempts emerging to kind of promote a carbon neutral outlook, a carbon neutral ethos in crypto. That's all well and good. And, carbon credits have been around for a long time. I'm not a huge fan, but whatever, it's a thing, people do it. Here's what a proof of work platform can do. A proof of work platform can do things like incentivize. Like, we have a foundation, right? And the foundation exists to grow the Kadena infrastructure. We're going to use the foundation to reward miners for using 100% green infrastructure. Period. Period. I mean, and it doesn't stop there. Here's one thing about Kadena that makes it a different kind of project and makes it even different than Bitcoin, different than proof of work Ethereum. I think because of our late entry and our contrarian position, in the sense that we're the one modern proof of work project, with the possible exception of Nervos, but they're doing something very different. We love mining for the reasons you just said. We love the distribution. We love the kind of fundamental value proposition, rational or concrete value proposition that comes from proof of work and mining, like you described.
Skin in the game.
So what that means is we like miners, and guess who hates miners? Like, every crypto project hates miners. Like, they're always battling with their miners. They're always like, we want to do this and our miners don't. Ethereum is telling all their miners to fuck off right now. Excuse my French.
No,
I mean, they are. I mean, they wouldn't deny it. They're anti-miner. They can't wait to take money out of miners' hands. And to me, that just hits me as if nothing else a little ungrateful. Ethereum is a very powerful platform, is a very powerful proof of work platform that's probably reaching its end of life pretty soon. But it did the thing.
100%.
And without proof of work, they couldn't have done it.
100%.
So why all the hate for miners?
Because they
Ethereum started with that. Ethereum came out, launched, and said, we're moving to proof of stake. They famously said they were going to move to proof of stake the next year, in 2015. So the point being is that we like proof of work. We love the distribution that comes with mining. So of course, Bitcoin too. Bitcoin has had huge fights with its miners. And in general, you've seen this kind of thing where it seems like, you have these ones changing algorithms all the time. This is all kind of yesterday's news in terms of proof of work isn't dominating the headlines like it used to. But, we're coming later. The point is that when we do something like a green incentive, when we do something like even confronting some issues with proof of work as it gets large, one thing to make clear though, is that Kadena is efficient. What does efficient mean? Utilization goes up. We can always add more chains. Adding more chains linearly increases throughput. So we add a chain, that's that much more X on our throughput and our storage. And our algorithm allows us to go to 50 chains, 100 chains, 1,000 chains, 10,000 chains, 100,000 chains, and up. It only constrained by bandwidth and storage and, kind of real world networking concerns. But nothing from the point of view of the protocol or anything. And in fact, it has the crazy property that it actually gets stronger from a security point of view as it scales. So the point being is that we're always going to be giving you more utility for your hash unit. Our argument is that if Bitcoin had been able to scale, everything would be on Bitcoin long time ago.
I agree.
Because everybody wanted to in 2014, 2015, and earlier there's Namecoin, there's all this kind of stuff where, just kind of basically timestamp and get this huge benefit from it. And then it all got thrown away because nothing could scale. We wouldn't be having any of these debates because we'd be getting so much utility out of Bitcoin. People's biggest complaint is, Bitcoin doesn't give you anything, which is false. But I'm totally false. That's ridiculous. But whatever. The real problem is that hash is going up and we're not getting anything for it except, making whales rich or whatever, whatever you want to say. So Kadena changes that narrative and as such is sustainable, period, even without any green incentives. But that's not good enough for us. We're in this position. We can drive the market. And a proof of work project is one of the few technologies that can actually do this. Not technologies, industries. It's one of the few industries that can actually do this. Tesla can't, Elon Musk done great things for green, of course, everybody knows it, but he can't force the grid to be clean for the gas station. That's not his job. I mean, he seems to get into a lot of things, so maybe he will. But but he'll do it through sheer force of being a rich guy. Like he'll just billionaire it. He'll be like, I'm gonna billionaire a bunch of gas stations. Cool, thanks, Elon. But whereas we can actually do it from with the power of our platform, and we're going to, and we're in the best position to do it, and we're one of the only projects in any industry that can actually yank people over to green as opposed to beg them to go over to green. Oh, pretty please. Oh, here's a little credit. No, we're actually going to make green money. We're going to make it more competitive. It's already incredibly competitive, but it's going to get more competitive. And as such, that's how we'll work hand in hand with the other part of this discussion that nobody seems to want to talk about with crypto, which is that the obvious solution is to make using dirty energy illegal. It's the government's problem to fix the grid.
100%.
You make it that you're an outlaw if you're using dirty coal. That doesn't mean it won't go away, but it does mean you'll push it where it belongs, into criminality, and it'll stay there because the fact is that, you're on the run and it'll just be meanwhile, people with green energy will be printing money and not worrying about a thing. But we're not going to wait for that.
This is why when I get back over here, it's every way you look at what brought Bitcoin to this fact right here of where we're at and why Bitcoin becomes that apex currency in every sector. So where Bitcoin did great in energy, Kadena is going to do better. Now let's jump over to technology. All right, there we go. So when we look at energy, right, and it's not saying that Kadena is going to replace Bitcoin, right? The way I'm looking at this is Bitcoin doesn't need to do it. It doesn't need to change. It doesn't need to get faster because what Bitcoin is it's just that store of value, right? So consider it like you will, everybody calls it the digital gold currency. But where I'm looking at it, I'm almost looking at Bitcoin like silver, and I'm looking at Kadena like gold. Or I'm looking at Bitcoin like gold, and I'm looking at Kadena like platinum. Because if you take a look at the bigger picture of this vortex, and when I say technology, I don't mean the actual utility of it. I mean the semiconductors and the hash power that's required to mine Bitcoin. Now, I don't know if Kadena, because of the actual tech, and like you said, is going to be able to expand so there won't be that network congestion, so that we won't have this massive army of miners constantly trying to, but what technology is there's so much money and resources going into mining Bitcoin because it's such a good store of gold or of value that you get these technology companies that make these semiconductors that are not heavily dependent on it, but I assume that Bitcoin miners make up a large percentage of their income, right? So if you went to proof of stake, you lose that edge because those large sums of capital actually add.
Oh, right. Yeah. You do have all this, and that's just straight commodities, right? That's no different than mining or anything, like real mining or any other kind of commodity-based stuff. Yeah, you have this kind of. It's not. You wouldn't call that an ecosystem. These, just because that's probably abusing that word, but something like that. And it does represent this kind of captive investment and alignment and kind of broad alignment.
Yep. And then when you have energy and you have big tech, that those naturally control politicians. So you kind of have this full circle, but from financial to mining, it builds a marketplace, right? And in order to disrupt a marketplace, we talk about Facebook disrupting MySpace, right? Because MySpace was a one-sided marketplace. You had the consumer who is the user, right? In order to out leverage MySpace, all Facebook had to do was add a better value add to the end user on one side. In order to disrupt something like Bitcoin, you need to add that same value proposition in every market, which makes it so difficult. And that's kind of what I'm kind of hinting towards here, which I see with Kadena being in a couple of years. I mean, Kadena could be it in 6 months if people, if there was enough of me out there to get the voice out there for people to realize where Bitcoin is going to be in 5 or 10 years. It's really mind-blowing. What are your thoughts on the
Well, the main thing is that proof of work, we represent the most significant advancement of proof of work, maybe since Bitcoin, but certainly more than like, Doge or, SV or something like that. I mean, in the sense that you got to talk to an engineer about scalability. And and when you're thinking about these things, you got to think like Amazon. You can't think like a cryptographer, Bitcoin maximalist. You just can't. You have to be like, what does scaling mean? Scaling means being able to throw more resources at the problem. Can't do that with Bitcoin. Can't do that with SV. Can't do that with Doge. You can't do that with anything. You have to be able to actually scale. And what does scaling look like? It usually looks a lot like what Kadena is, in the sense that more you need, because Bitcoin SV, I'm just bringing them up because
they're examples.
And they like to talk about like, oh, we have infinite scalability. It's like, it's a joke, but the point is they're talking about block sizes, right? Well, why can't you block size be whatever you want? And it's like, yes, but then I can still take your block size and do 10 of them, so it's kind of like that thing. It's like, you're never going to catch up to us if you don't really scale. So like, sorry, that's why Amazon got in front. That's why, scalability always wins. And people think fast finality is scalability. Like, oh, we moved on to Binance Smart Chain, so like we're fast now, so done. No, you're not done. You just got to take a breath until your next congestion hurdle. Scalability is boom, 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 boom. Oh, we're out. Boom, 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 boom. Oh, we're out again. Boom, 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 boom. You got to be able to keep going. And so that represents a meaningful innovation on proof of work that fixes its core problems just by being scalable, simply by being efficient, simply by being able for the same hash unit to do 1 chain, 10 chains, 20 chains, 1,000 chains, 100,000 chains.
Now let me ask you this: when you guys make that, because you guys went from 10 to 20, right?
Yep. Last year.
And you guys,
no, 2 years ago.
2 years ago?
Last year. Sorry. With pandemic, I just can't remember any dates anymore.
Yep, I know how it is, man. And did you guys have to do that, or was that something you wanted to do to show that it was possible?
Well, we had to do it so that we did it, while we're still kind of kicking the tires is really what it is. Like, okay. It was hard. I mean, that was, it was in our algorithm, it was all proven, but writing the code was, hard. And it was risky. It went without a hitch, but that doesn't mean we weren't sitting there like, when it rolled out, like, oh my God, when the actual fork came and 10 new chains fire up, and now we're needing all the miners to start mining all the chains. Well, guess what? It just worked. So the point is, now we know how to do it.
So that's where I was headed with this. Is there any security risk each time you guys need to scale?
None.
Because you guys beta tested it the first time. You just
by first principles. There is no problem with it on first principles. It's just more capacity coming online.
Can you explain first principles?
Oh, sorry. I just mean the design rules out a lot of problems. In other words, I don't have to prove it to you like, oh, we really tested this. And like when your design covers certain things, you don't have to worry about other things. So like, here's what we weren't worried about. We weren't worried about those chains somehow corrupting the first 10 chains. We weren't worried that like you're going to be able to do some kind of fraudulent transaction. We weren't worried that chain web was going to stop working. We were worried that we had just, I forgot something, and like, here's the thing about computer software. The reason why you have to have simple designs is because it's so hard to put things in practice. The design has to be simple, and the design has to give you a lot. And that's one of the problems with Ethereum, is that Ethereum has so many core flaws. Here's what Ethereum did fine. They made it a blockchain that never chokes on its own data. Like the way they did all their state tree and all that kind of stuff that goes into the block, they did all that correctly. They're cryptographers. It's not a surprise. Ethereum likes Ethereum. Ethereum never chokes on Ethereum. Humans choke on the EVM and on Solidity to the tune of $1 billion. And it's because of fundamental flaws with EVM. So that's the same thing with Pact. You got to start with this is software engineering. You have to start building off of giants, building off of the best practices. You have to know what you're headed towards in order to do it right. So when we went from 10 to 20 chains, the design assured us we just had to implement the design. And maybe, and of course, the thing is that's hard. And especially in a distributed system, that's really, really hard. And especially a distributed system that you don't control. That's the one thing that really galls me when people, and especially crypto people, hate on Bitcoin. Is it's just like, guys, they are the ones who put this out there. They're the ones who took all the risks. They're the ones who like made a distributed system run by itself, under constant attack, and you just can't stop it. And that's why, of course, we're not going to replace Bitcoin, because you can't stop Bitcoin. Like, nobody can stop Bitcoin. So no, of course, we're not going to replace Bitcoin. And in fact, I think we are going to, you say gold and platinum, that's great. I'd love that. I would just say it's just another asset that finally there's another asset that can mess with Bitcoin. Of course, I actually think that it won't stop here. I think crypto basically bought the story that proof of work was yesterday's news because some people said it was, and then just went all in on that. And somebody's going to look at what we did and be like, there's more to be done here. And that's going to be great. But meanwhile, we're on our plateau. We have established our position, and it's definitely a value prop over Bitcoin because it's a more efficient system. We can simply be a better Bitcoin and call it a day because we actually are a better Bitcoin. And that's not, the whole picture, because there's a lot more to Bitcoin too. There's obviously the first mover. Also, people forget that Bitcoin also has a smart contract language. It just got locked down early on. And that was a safe, principled meaning that the design afforded safety. It was Turing incomplete. Now, it turned out that they got it wrong, and that's why they had to clamp down, is because it turned out it was harder to secure there. So again, you don't forget those things when you go design the next thing. Instead, we looked very closely at Bitcoin and said, what did they get wrong? But then what did they get right? They got right a small language where you can kind of understand every operation that's happening. Check sig, atomic hash lock, these kinds of things. It's like, oh, I know what that's doing. Oh, I see. There's the public key. Oh, okay, great. This is great. Turing incomplete, can't run out of control, doesn't make programmers tie themselves into knots. With those kind of fundamental ingredients, we designed Pact to actually operate like a modern scripting language, and with the most obvious inspiration being something like structured query language for databases, SQL. But the point is, there were obvious choices that could be made to give somebody a better solution than Bitcoin script and Ethereum Solidity. So again, we're like a lot of things in Kadena, we are students of Bitcoin, but I think we've actually graduated from class because we rolled this thing out, and it's been in production for 2 years, and the contracts are safe, and the security is unbeatable, and the throughput is unlimited.
That's insane, man. That's insane. It's crazy how fast the crypto world is evolving. And it's still blowing my mind that I found your guys' token, that you guys are only on KuCoin. That blows my mind. So what is the next move as far as getting onto other exchanges? Is that something that exchanges will invite you to, or is that something you just automatically have to pay for?
The problem is that exchanges are both of those things and neither. They're both invite only and not. They're both pay to play, and you can't pay to play if they don't return your phone call. Right now, it's a pretty ridiculous system. And so KuCoin has been great. They've been a great partner. The volumes on KuCoin have been incredible of late. So KuCoin is a very functional exchange. There's many participants. Problem with some of these exchanges, they start thinking they're God's gift to crypto or something. It's like, no, you're just a necessarily thing on the edges, and God, I can't wait till we don't need you anymore. That's what DeFi is going to do, right? I mean, with DeFi and some on-ramps. You need some on-ramps. Always be a place for on-ramps. But on-ramps are different than exchanges. A Square or a PayPal is different than a Coinbase. It's just even a Robinhood. So anyways, and then the other thing is that exchanges have a very hard time retaining technical talent because it's got to be the most boring job in crypto, integrating new tokens. And everybody, there's a huge labor shortage for software developers. If you're a software developer in crypto, you can go make $300,000 a year right now, and be turning down offers, bidding war for you. So the point is, and especially Coinbase, doing the thing where they let those people resign. That was just hilarious. It's like, wow, you just launched 15 new crypto projects. Good going, guys. Nice for the ecosystem, actually. Thank you. Thanks for giving the ecosystem a bunch of great technologists, because guess what? They're not at Coinbase anymore, and that's the story at every exchange. And we are a totally different protocol. It's not for nothing that we have multi-sig on every single transaction. That means the exchange on some level has to get multi-sig. And there's oh God, really, I can't just do the same thing with the one key that if the user loses it, they're wrecked, really? What's another example is multi-chain, right? We scale. The exchange is going to have to get that into their head, and they have to implement that technology right. Because right now they're just what? I just pointed this API, isn't that fine? No, it's not fine, because these are, if you look at the stock market, you look at these other systems, Like they have to incorporate these things. You have to incorporate, in fact, it adds up to like safety and things like that. Like you have to offer people multi-sig. People are handling huge amounts of money in crypto with a single key. It's insane.
Yeah.
You know, so like you have to have multi-sig, you have to be able to scale. So in other words, you have to have a multi-chain you need to make that easy for users. So wallets, exchanges, you know, you got to abstract all this out for users. That requires programmers, and that's what exchanges don't have. So like, in addition to exchanges just being totally arbitrary and mercurial, we also bring these concepts that require them to actually have to lift a finger to integrate us. So they've dragged their feet, and you know what? They're losing because KuCoin made a shit ton of money in the past week. And good for them. And good for them.
So did I.
I'm just saying, like the volumes have been awesome, and that's when exchanges print money.
Yep.
You know, like it's like such easy money running an exchange.
Yep.
All you need is people trading.
I agree.
KDA delivered on that. So like, sorry Coinbase, sorry, you know, I mean, we'd love to be on your platform, and you know, and it's always real soon now.
Yep.
You know, of course we're in contact with everybody, and it's always real soon now.
Good. Hopefully, I put in the good word for you guys to buy Bit. So hopefully,
right. It's actually it's simple. They're going to come now because, you know, once the demand is there, you know, they're demand driven just like anything else. So, you know, it's not the kind of thing I worry about. I was worried before we were on KuCoin. It would obviously be better to be on more exchanges. It's going to be great when we are on all the major exchanges. That's not going to take long.
Yep.
One of the things that Kadena is going to do is it's going to make some people very. It's going to be very good for the projects that saw what Kadena was, because they were ahead of everybody else.
I agree. I wish I would have found you guys sooner, man. I really did. Like when I found it, I was like, oh man. And then I started going through the tokenomics and digging into it, and I was like, I actually stopped buying. Like I had packed my bags on what I thought was my core portfolio, and Kadena is now my #1 asset. And I was looking at it at 413. I'm like, I don't care the next $1,000 I get. It does not matter what the price of Kadena is. It's just going to be, because I don't think like Bitcoin, Ethereum, maybe 5x, right? So I'm looking at like a longer term, and I know you guys can't talk about price, but just if you look at any other crypto projects and what they bring to the table, then you look at what Kadena is, any logical market actor will see that, look to the future and go, where do I see this project? It's almost like it doesn't go anywhere but up. Not just the price, but even just the whole project as itself, because every angle where there is a way for a project to generate revenue in the cryptocurrency ecosystem, I don't think you guys are missing any. Is there anything you guys are missing?
I mean, you know, our ecosystem is small. I mean, it's like just getting started, but like, yeah, no, of course not. I mean, it's because, you know, also we're at post Ethereum too. So, you know, we've seen what's going on with Ethereum. You know, we've designed our standards after Ethereum designed all their standards. We study them very carefully. You know, it's like there's a lot of things that have been done right. That's why we're here today. We're going to take the next steps on those. But one thing also is that proof of work, the distribution of coins through mining, is a fair distribution, and it can sustain pretty much endless value. And proof of stake is the opposite.
100%.
Proof of stake comes to market, and it's all wrapped up.
It turns into proof of stake turns into it reminds me of a centralized fiat currency. Is exactly what it reminds me of, because at the end of the day, the players that have the largest bankrolls get the most rewards, and then in return, it's like just a never-ending cycle of the rich getting richer, and then they can dump on the market and debase the currency whenever they want. So it's almost like you have to have that skin in the game that you get awarded from proof of work.
You know, you see this word, I've tweeted about this, you see these words come up in some of the financial audits of, like, say, Thorchain, or, you know, some of these other, you know, pretty advanced, you know, very interesting projects, very advanced, you know, thinking going on in these projects. But the point is that, you know, when they start talking about economic security, this word comes up, altruism. I'm like, wait, how in a crypto system did we start talking about altruism? You know, and like, I'm like, that's interesting. And of course, what they mean is this psalm that they're saying to themselves, that like, that because the, you know, whales have so much money in the system, they have the system's best interest at heart, and they're working, you know, and their interests are aligned. And it's like, until they're not.
Yeah.
Or, you know, the thing that a lot of people have talked about, where all you need is like a lending platform that's paying more than the staking platform. Yeah, I mean, I'm, as a rational actor, I'm heading over to, you know, POS lend. I'm not going to hang out in POS validate. I'm not going to run a stupid validator if I can get a higher APY. And, you know, so proof of stake has, I actually think proof of stake, they've done a good job kind of establishing that model. I mean, they've overdone it, but like, we have something, our bonding is basically a proof of stake model. It's using Kadena for security, but it's actually creating a new form of security because it's locking up money that can be slashed in order to say, did this transaction actually occur on our bridge? And like, that's a form of security. And since it's a bridge, it's something that necessarily we can't secure on chain. So one of the things, like with Terra talking about Luna coming over to Kadena, that's about our bridge to the Cosmos platform, which is based on IBC. And the thing is, IBC has a similar setup on their side in the sense that the way an IBC thing can send something. IBC, by the way, is how Cosmos chains like Terra, Thorchain, all these other things on Gravity DEX can talk to each other. It's basically an interop way for stuff built on Cosmos, and it's it's launching now. Cosmos is kind of somewhat comparable to Kadena. They just did it with proof of stake and with separate proof of stake chains that actually don't share anything. As such, they actually showed how to scale proof of stake, which is that you don't scale it per se. You actually just make it like heterogeneous. You just make it that like, oh, you want to do something, launch a chain. I mean, to me, I'm thinking like, gosh, wouldn't it be easier if you could just write a smart contract and deploy it onto Kadena? So then you don't have to be a validator and you don't have to run nodes. Wouldn't that be nice? Like, isn't that better? But whatever, it's working. There's great projects on Cosmos, and IBC is going to allow them to all talk to each other. That's already running. And so the point is that our relay will have a very nice meeting point with IBC. So, and because we now have the proof of stake architecture, but it's not proof of stake, I just call it bonded. It's basically bonded security. We have bonded security, so we can kind of speak IBC's language. We had a very hard time designing a safe way to build a bridge to Ethereum. And we're going to have the bridge, but it's actually not going to be like we originally talked about and it's probably going to be something more based on swaps because there's actually no way to build a safe bridge to Ethereum.
That's one part I'm still trying to wrap my head around. What is a bridge? I get that.
It's just get assets from Ethereum to PSV.
But how do you do that when you have an ERC20 token? Is it you're always going to have a wrapped version of that no matter what?
Some projects, try to claim that, we don't wrap and all this kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, it's always the same thing. You're locking up something on one side to make it appear on the other.
So I would lock up Ethereum and ERC20
to have a wrapped Ethereum show up over
here. With a KDA address.
Yeah, KETH. So TokenSoft's KETH on our platform is done through Anchorage. And that just means that, a liquidity provider working with Anchorage will basically be custodying ETH in Anchorage such that it shows up on our chain.
How long till you guys fully have your decentralized platform up and running? See,
the nice thing about something like TokenSoft is that way we can actually move large amounts of money safely because yes, it's centralized, but at least it's Anchorage. It's not just like a three-way multi-sig by three anonymous people. It's freaking Anchorage. So it's institutional quality. It's like they're not going to rug. There's no rug pulling going on there. So, and also, centralized at the edges is pretty common. On-ramps are going to be centralized. Exchanges are centralized, so having a way to bring large amounts of liquidity over to Kadena is a good thing. But then now we've got the kind of implied pair sitting on the other chain. So now we can do things like swaps. And that is easy to do safely because, again, we can put all the logic on chain. We have trustless escrow. We can set it up that you got this thing waiting in escrow and anybody can submit the proof of the thing that happened on Ethereum. Boom, money changes hands. Can't wreck it because it's simple.
That's so awesome.
It's what Lightning does. It's the same thing that Lightning Network does. And Lightning does it with the purposes of speeding things up and then just chucking it back onto Bitcoin.
Yep.
In our case, we're going to use that technology where you have KETH here and you have ETH here. Dink. And the big difference is that it means that the money has to be there in the first place. But good thing in crypto, we figured that problem out. It's called liquidity providers. That's not an accident. We're not just going to launch and be like, gee, won't anybody come over? Of course, we're launching when we have the size, and that's coming up very soon. We've been making great progress at TokenSoft. We got an auditor looking at the smart contracts. So this is real code that is ready to launch, and it's just a big deal and it's Anchorage. So all the boxes are being checked, and then when it launches, there's going to be size. And once you got size, you can safely swap around.
Wow. And so I assume you can't give us any hints on date wise. Are we talking like a couple months, maybe a year?
Yeah, no, it's like a couple months. No, it is.
Ooh,
yeah, no,
so
it's, I mean, honestly, we thought this was going to happen a lot sooner, and yeah, what else is new, right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we really thought it was going to be in June. I don't know how we got here. No, No, but I'm saying like it's not technical, a lot of the stuff. The technical problems are not the issue here. There are some big pieces that need to be maneuvered into position. So we're not talking just like some random crypto project. We're talking about, partners and serious size and all that kind of stuff. And we can't rush it because there's no point in launching our decks. Like we're launching, we talk about innovations. We're going to have tons of innovations in CADX, but the first thing we're doing is launching an AMM. We're going to make it possible to move between tokens on our platform. That's the goal of a DEX. That's CADX.
That's CADX. Oh, it is CADX.
Yeah, that's CADX.
Okay.
Yeah,
I thought you guys had Kadena swap.
Kadena swap is what it was originally, and we have since split it so that Kadena swap represents the what I was talking about before, the decentralized infrastructure. So there's going to be nothing about CADX that's owned by anybody, or that it's just going to be autonomous AMM kit that, of course, you can trade directly into, but you can also very easily stand in front of it. Kadena swap will never have a governance token, and that's important because we think that the infrastructure, you should be able to trust in the infrastructure, kind of like you trust in the highway system or something. Like there shouldn't be an inside deal on the security, and then get the token and the security apart from each other. Now you can really do the right thing with the token. You can really do the right thing to incentivize LPs, do all the kinds of things you have to do, because crypto is about using rewards to make cool shit happen, and it works. But some of that stuff needs to be done with a token, and so that needs to be done by projects that run that token. So CADX is not us. CADX is a completely separate project, and making that happen, really making it not us, is something that also was more complicated than we thought it would be. And there's been some bumps on the road there. So, but the point is that, even though we move faster than most projects, we also don't rush things, because why get it wrong? We've built our entire value proposition around actually getting things right. But now it's like this year we actually took on harder problems. Last year it was all about the platform we had built and delivering on things like, we launched when we said we were going to launch. We went to 20 chains when we said we were going to go to 20 chains. We've generally hit all of our major milestones on time, but this year we took on, things that were bigger than just Kadena. But the progress has been great, and it has allowed us to do really nice things. Like we've now run a tournament on the relay. People got the fees that they would have made, get exchanged for real KDA. So at the end of the tournament, we had a program called Bounty Swap where we put a bunch of a kind of test currency in there that was backed by Kadena, but that way we could have this limited supply, and then it could go out of circulation once the program was over. And the idea being, and when we put it into mainnet and we said hack it, and if you hack it, you can keep all the money. And then we put 20,000 KDA into some pairs, the equivalent, with fake pairs, fake tokens, and then said go for it. And in fact, it worked. Somebody found a bug, and they wrecked the whole platform, took all the money out, and we gladly gave them the equivalent KDA, because bravo.
Yeah.
That's
why you guys do things like that.
Exactly. And that's why we did the tournament. The tournament was a little different. It was trying to compete. People were competing to get the most rewards, more like just gamification leaderboard shit, brag rights. Yeah, I mean, of course, if there was a hack, it was all in testnet, so who cares?
Yep.
And as a result, that's why we had to do it this other way. But I think the greatest thing about 2021 for Kadena is Kadena found its community, and we got caught up with the way communities drive crypto. It's the hidden sauce that that people outside of crypto don't really understand, is that it's not, and it looks so much just like frothy, shilly bullshit that people don't see that there's this gem behind all of it. And that's the decentralized prospect of crypto makes communities, and then the communities make the crypto.
And you guys did that above and beyond, because you guys locked up your founders' assets for 10 years, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
That's right.
I don't think I've ever heard of a project ever doing any length of time even remotely close to that. It's almost unheard of or unprecedented in the crypto industry.
Actually, at the time we were originally doing our initial coin sales in 2017 and 2018, there were some pretty big lockups.
There is?
Yeah. It's the right thing to do. It's how we show that this is money to develop the platform. This is not money to rug and bill. This is, this money needs to be, there needs to be money, and that money, however, needs to be locked into the system to show that we're serious. And we're not the only ones. I mean, I think Tezos, I think they have a pretty nice setup. The point is that there are ways to do this right, and there's ways to do it even in proof stake context, although I think it's hard actually. That's what I've heard. I'm not going to say what platform, I'm not going to say who it was, but somebody who runs a dominant proof of stake platform said it was incredibly difficult to put together something approaching an equitable distribution. And if I had to do it again, I wouldn't.
Wow. Wow.
That's what's proof of stake just pushes you in that direction. It pushes you towards the VCs and the whales.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it just does. Like if you're trying to stop that, you're trying to stop a freight train, because that's not the way it wants to go. And that's the thing about proof of work. You just never think about these things.
I'm so glad I got my head out of my butt about the whole proof of work thing. And it really wasn't until I met your team that I really started to dive deeper and explore that rabbit hole. Because I was mining Ethereum back in 2016. So I've been around for a while, but it's almost like you just watch a little bit of the media. You get little bits and pieces from some YouTubers and this and that. And it's like, there's almost so much BS about proof of work out there that you inevitably end up just mentally, especially somebody that knows nothing about crypto, going, oh yeah, proof of work's bad for the environment, just without even really even looking into it. It's just you just think it because that's what you hear, but it's so inaccurate. It's almost like it's
just crazy biased at the end of the day. I mean, it's like, I was reading an article that was more on the political tip. It was saying the crypto fanatic position, unironically. Is this a discussion? And it was in a pretty sophisticated, it was in Jacobin or something like that, so like a left wing, like very political, very activist, like, is this really going to make people free, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, you're going to have this discussion and you're going to say crypto fanatic as the position. It was like, I was like, wow, this isn't going to be much of a discussion, is it? No. And you really see this kind of thing where, and by the way, proof of stakers, the reason why they hate Bitcoin, of course, is because they feel like they get tarred with that brush. Well, guess what? You do, because Bitcoin made this whole thing, and Bitcoin's why you're here. 100%. So but you might want to actually think about how to talk in less hysterical tones about it, and maybe also concede the weaknesses of proof of stake, and not because everyone's like, oh, well, at the end of the day, isn't it just the security is just, the market cap? It's like, sure. That's one of those and the sky is blue. It's one of those and obviously a more successful platform is.
So yeah, man, I'm sure you're busy and I don't want to keep you. I normally try to keep these about an hour, but I know there was one last thing that I wanted to ask you. You guys got any big announcements, or is there anything, where can everybody follow you?
We just made a bunch, so sorry, can't drop a big one here, but yep. But I'm just really excited about them. We finally got our website revamped. That's amazing, because finally, it's weird. We're a small company, and it's, you'd think it'd be easy to just throw up the right corporate presence, but it's not, at least for us. I don't know. So we got out. That's great. Don't have to correct people getting confused. Our story's really gotten a lot more straightforward now. So the website, that was a big one. We got Ledger support coming this quarter, and I can say that because I know where the software's at. We don't. One thing is that to the best of our abilities, when we know we're now putting dates on things when we know they're going to go.
Yep.
And we're not going to shy away from doing that. But otherwise, we say we just give kind of progress updates. We've moved away from the kind of in the third quarter we're going to blah 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 to hey, here's everything we're working on. And then when they get to that point where it's oh, this is going to go gold. So Ledger is going gold. That's gonna hit them. That's gonna be amazing. We're hoping to ship it with direct. It'll eventually, hopefully quite soon. I mean, definitely quite soon, but maybe even at launch, integrate with Chainweaver. So you'll be able to use Ledger for a multi-sig wallet. I mean, it's gonna up the game for custody. That's really exciting. And then of course the immutable record announcement. So just a week ago, Stuart Haber, our advisor, author of the 3 papers cited in the Bitcoin paper, which is more than any other site, and his co-author are issuing a series of NFTs, and their custody and secondary market is going to entirely be handled on the Kadena NFT platform.
Oh, that's so awesome, man. Congratulations on all your guys' success. Can you tell the viewers a little bit about how you got involved with Kadena before you go?
Oh, sure. That's just, so my background is I've been in software since the 90s. I started working in financial in 2001, was doing that straight through till basically in late 2014, JP Morgan asked me to lead this blockchain group, and it was both strategic advisory and R&D. So strategic advisory meant we talked to everybody. Everybody came in. Vitalik, everybody who's doing anything in blockchain wanted to talk to JP Morgan, so we talked to them. And then we were also saying, well, what can JP Morgan do with this technology? And that we built their first iteration of their JPM coin while we were there, with an innovative blockchain that would obviously inform some of the things we did at Kadena. So basically, we formed Kadena once we had an idea what we thought was going to, at that time, solve the problems of enterprise blockchain. But it turns out that the problems of enterprise blockchain, when applied to public networks, solve all the problems that, because now crypto is a big business. So what do you know? It's hitting all the problems that hit software when it becomes a big business. And, a good software engineer, an experienced software engineer should know that, well, I think these problems got solved before, so what did they do? So you go look at that, you look at what's worked, you look at what's secure, which is, which actually is a form of conservatism. You basically say, what really works? Proof of work. By 2015, it was like, yeah, proof of work works. And then multi-sig. Yep, that's a good thing. ED 255.9 signatures. Yep, that sounds good. How do we put these together? And so we were like, we got to found a company. There's no way we're going to get JP Morgan to focus on all the questions you have to answer to get this right. So Will brought there, who previously was a founding tech lead of the SEC's cryptocurrency working committee, because he used to be a software developer over there.
Say that one more time. This is my favorite part. You guys got somebody that used to work with the SEC?
Formed their cryptocurrency steering committee.
You guys have it on every level: banks, SEC, value, proof of work. I mean, I don't think we're missing anything here.
Well, that's why we found it. We're like, this is a great technology. This is a great time. We got to do this. And we've always been guided by that. That's the thing. So that's what, because we did start strictly private blockchain, because that seemed like everybody thought private blockchain was going to be huge in 2015. Everybody was wrong. Everybody. IBM's out of it. At that time, the question we always got was, how do you guys think you can make it when there's like IBM and all these big people coming in? You don't have a chance. And we were like, not scared of IBM, sorry.
Yeah.
Not scared. I've already worked at JP Morgan. I know what big companies do. They fuck up. They think, they try to muscle everybody around and don't do shit and never win. Sorry, I'm just not worried about it. It's just like any other startup. It's like the small startup always beats the big guy. They always get weighed down by their success. It's that whole thing everybody knows about. And what is it? Innovator's dilemma or whatever.
Yeah, I think that you guys have such a big advantage, because you guys really stepped back and analyzed what everybody else did wrong, what was working. And it seems like if I were to cherry pick things out of every cryptocurrency, that I wanted to have the best of everything, including that I haven't heard you talk on, is the fact that your coding language is actually human readable, which is also extremely innovative. Are you guys the only ones that have done that so far?
Kind of. It does seem that way. In fact, of kind of leading ones, just because every other blockchain, for engineering reasons, often, no way you're going to compile stuff and put it on there, because why would you waste all that time? Blah, 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 and geek stuff. And meanwhile, it was very obvious that was the right answer. I mean, you already said it. That's a big deal. Wait, why are you the only guys doing that? Yes, I agree. Why are we the only? But you know what? One thing is that the pace of innovation in smart contract languages has been pathetic. Basically, once Solidity won, nothing happened. And that's not entirely true. I mean, you have Tezos and you have Cardano now. Mm-hmm. You have some better stuff. I don't know what took them so long, for one, and so they're at least safer. But then you still have compiled code on chain that nobody can read. So now what? That's a huge part of Pact security, is that you can go just look at the code. Wait, are they checking my key? Is that my key that they're checking? Yeah. Oh yeah, there it is. You can do that. And what's more, this is not even in software engineering, JavaScript, HTML, SQL. There's so many languages that by design operate in the code. You don't compile them into gobbledygook. There are very, very good reasons for this. So it's another one of these. So again, we actually thought when we launched that, or Pact was just going to be one of many, and it was just going to be this battle of ideas. And instead it was just crickets. Basically everyone was doing Solidity, and Solidity for whatever reason stopped innovating. Solidity and EVM, they just refuse to improve that platform. We're kind of the place for smart contract innovation in practice. and we didn't intend that. We're going to do our best because there's going to be a bunch of people, and we want to kick ass. So, but there hasn't been anybody.
Man, that's so cool. I can't thank you enough for coming on the show, man. What an honor.
Oh, yeah. Great talking to you.
It's been a great time, and maybe we can follow up and do another interview in a couple months or something.
Sounds good.
All right. Thank you, Stuart. I appreciate you for coming on the show, man, and wish you and the team the best.
Thanks so much, Ryan. Great talking to you.
Thanks.